Test. There we go. There's the mic working again. I do not know why it decided to turn off on me. Okay, welcome everyone. So tonight I figured I would circle back to some long-awaited stuff on the material design project and just kind of smash out some bugs. So just by way of update for the WinUI stuff that it was working on last week, I did end up getting the Ripple working. So the stuff out on that branch. Here, just demonstrate. So back over here, there is a branch sitting out on the main project. This WinUI experiment branch. So if you want to get in and play with it, there is a demo app out there that you are free to powwow on and let me know what you think. It's based largely on this WinUI thing here. So if people are interested in contributing, I will happily accept pull requests into that branch. So feel free to play with that if you're interested, and also leave feedback. There is an issue out here for WinUI. So if people are interested in this, let me know. Upvote this guy. I'm very interested in seeing how many people are interested in consuming it, and if anybody's interested in helping out with it. So feel free to drop me a comment there. But tonight, I think we are going to see if I can knock out what will probably be the 4.10 release. There's been a few things that have just kind of hung out here, and I kind of want to get this thing wrapped up. The release isn't huge, but there is quite a few bug fixes and enhancements kind of all littered throughout here. So if I figured I would take a crack at getting some of these done. So I think first on the chopping block, I might pick on this because this one came in this week. There and it reproduces fairly easily inside of the demo application. So let's take a look at this first, because things that cause your app to crash are generally a bad thing. All right, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to actually just dock it over here where I can keep an eye on it. So I believe it's as simple as firing up the demo app and clicking through on the time picker. And I did test this, and the steps listed there do reproduce. I didn't spend any time to determine whether the bug was in the demo app validation or whether it was inside of the style itself. So I figured I would go here. I have breakpoints all over this thing. Continue. Okay, so this guy here, and I think you just type in 00:0 and we break. All right, so basically we get all the way to here. So this validate simple time validation rule. So this guy is in the demo app, so it's a little less scary. Why? So obviously if I look at my call stack, it should be recursive. So let's see what is going on here. So this is doing validation on the binding. Turn that so I'm not having to look at it. It's taking in the value because this is just a standard validation rule. And so we're at 0:00, right? We try to parse the value. If the try parse succeeds, we return a valid result. Otherwise, we return an invalid result. And this guy here is sitting on the text changed. And so something is causing this to trigger repeatedly. So let's stop here and let's clean up a few things here. So first of all, we can use a discard parameter there, which means we don't need that. Which is great. Clean up a little bit of that stuff. So this really is just a straight try parse. Okay, and then here Is invalid text allowed? Add some braces to that. Just gonna, while I'm doing work on the time picker, we're just gonna clean some of this up a little bit. Since we now have nice editor configs, might as well make this a little bit nice to work with. And turn that on. Just do a little cleanup here. Little cleanup through here. Just to make things a little bit nicer. What is your problem? Expression value is never used. Oh, yuck. No. Oh, this is, we can use the new pattern matching stuff, which is great. Don't care. Parentheses should be added for clarity. I disagree. This is just asking for problems. Okay, so that, no, that's fine. I don't mind the if statements with that, without braces when they're precondition checks at the beginning, especially with when the result of the if condition being true is just an early return. Oh, this is a switch expression. Wait, add missing cases, add default case, add both. No. We're not going to do that. That is, though I don't know why this is a switch. This could just be a straight up if. Come back to that. Right, a switch with a single condition is just an if statement. Little cleanup, little cleanup. What is your problem? Yeah, you're fine. If statement can be simplified. I would actually argue I want to invert this. Invert conditional. I think generally phrasing things in the affirmative is better than the negative, just for clarity of reading it. And then do that. Okay, so now that I've thoroughly added a bunch of formatting to this, let's take a look at where we have problems. So we've got this guy here. So this is effectively saying that we are looping through here. If pop-up is open or invalid text allowed. So I guess I'm a little curious which of these cases we're getting into. Okay, so let's go back to our pickers. 0. 0. I assume the same thing. Great. Colon. So invalid text allowed is true, right? So that's fine. 0. And this is where we get into interesting situations. The text is this. What is the current value of the text property? Because this is where we're looping. So how about get So this guy got converted. Interesting. So that got converted, which is why it sees it as a diff. This up here, I don't think is relevant. I mean, this parses, but I don't think this is actually relevant to the problem. I'm pretty sure it's just this guy here. With the idea being that this text has changed. It's setting the text property. Wait. Wait a minute. So, wait, the text box text is this. What are the references from here? So it adds a handler for the text box text changed event to the text box, which is an internal child of us. So we register up for the text changed event, right? We added a handler to it, which is great, fine. It's what we want. So the text is flipping and flopping. So something is setting text box text when we do this. And I imagine it is probably in so what is the appropriate way to handle this then? So when we set our text property, I still want to know where the link is between the text property and going back to the text box itself. It's probably a binding issue, not here. So let's start with this. Let's write a test for this, and then we will confirm it. So time picker already has some tests. Time picker test. Excellent. So somebody's already gone to the effort of writing me some tests. Lovely, 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 lovely. So we're going to come down here, and we will do fact, description, issue, and the issue number is 2309. So 2309. Let's see. Public async task on time picker zero value. It sets the text. Right? And then I think what I can probably do is likely leach some of this pre-canned XAML that is already clearly labeled for us. Right? Okay, so we've got this, we get the time picker. I don't care to do that. I don't care to do that, and I don't care to assert on that. Right? That is not the test. So in our case, what we want to do is time picker. I could set text, get text, but I think we actually want to type. What was my API on here? I can't remember my clicky API. There's click and there's type text keyboard. I don't remember what the API is for this. It is on time picker, right? So show only extension methods. Send input. That's what we're looking for. Boom. Okay, so we want to send input. And we would like to send let's see, 00:0. That is the failure point. Oh, wait. Let's see. Wait, I thought one of the inputs was formatable string. Maybe I'm lying. Keyboard input. Oh, formatable string looks like that. Right, because this guy here is an extension method and does magic on it. But we will go with that. Okay, so I think real quick something I'm going to do is I would like to XAML test. Let's see, issues, new issue, add, send input, overload, allow for about consider send input overload that simply takes a string. Boom, there, just so I don't forget about that. Okay, so this should get us to the end. Await, task delay. I'm going to just give it 100 milliseconds to let that guy go, because if it's going to crash, it's probably going to crash pretty quick. We'll run the test. I imagine it comes down pretty fast. We can probably even drop the helper text. Launch, launch, launch. Okay, so the test failed, which is good. It's kind of what we want, since we haven't fixed it. Failed to move focus. So it actually failed on the send input. That's fine. What we'll do is we'll just hunt the text box out of the inside of it. Okay, so let's clean this up just a little bit. Make that a little cleaner. Let's see. So inside of here, we want to go var TextBox gets time picker get element TextBox. All right, and we'll just send the text. We'll just go straight into it. This needs to be awaited, and then bring this guy in, run the test. Hopefully that kicks that off. I'm not entirely sure how this is going to handle that. Failed to find child of type. Oh, come on. Oh, come on. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go here. We're going to debug the test, and then I want to open up Snoop and actually go and look at the guy. This will launch, and then it'll hang right there on the breakpoint. Great. But we can come over here. So there should be a text box in there. Not entirely sure why it failed to find it, but let's see if there's something funky. It could be a subtle type change in here. Time picker text box. That's why it didn't find it. It's a different type. So, time picker text box. That's fine. We can hunt that guy out. It would be nice if it would allow me to add that to my feature list. Oh, not what I'm looking for. Sorry, I'm going to put that back on my XAML test library. XAML test. Let's see, issues, new issue. What was it? Get element. Get element. Allow for base types. Let's see. Allow for looking up child elements using a base type such as TextBox base for finding any element that matches. Boom, submit issue. I'm going to leave that open just in case I want it back. Okay, run test. Oh, probably need to close that window. So for those people who are unfamiliar with this, this is a library that I wrote that is designed to kind of go through and simulate. It's kind of a UI testing library, but it's lower level, right? Most UI testing libraries want to go through the accessibility API to make sure that your app is accessible, and that is not the intent here. This is, I want to be able to test colors and exact inputs, and for whatever reason this did not crash. So time span from seconds 10. I want to see this thing Stack Overflow, because I'd love to start from a failing test and work back towards a green one. Oh, interesting. It didn't appear to fail. Oh, now that's interesting. I wonder if it does require that validation rule to be present. That could be interesting. So I paused it there. 0, 0, colon, 0, 0. So it does require a validation rule. Interesting. Okay, so let's test that theory. I had not considered that, but let's go find this validation rule in the demo app and turn it off. Right, so well, let's start with this, because there's two things happening here, right? We've got both a binding on the text property and a validation rule on the binding itself. Let's start with just nuking everything, because this is in line with what my test just did. Right? Is this fired up and said, okay, let me go through and remove all of it. Let's just get rid of it, and then 0. Oh, go ahead and let that go still. 0, 0, colon, 0. Stack Overflow. So this guy here is doing it. This guy blew up at a slightly different point, but this didn't require any of that to be added. Interesting. Okay, so something is different, and it probably requires one of these additional properties to be set. So let's start with this. Let's add this into the test, right? So that is another point of differentiation. All right, so we will put that in. Get rid of one of those. Run test. Because again, what I'm really looking for is to make this test fail first. I guess it makes sense that that property would need to be true. Close snoop. It appears hung. Interesting. Why did I hang? It does appear that the process crashed, but my test is still running. So let's debug through, because I am so the Windows crashed. Interesting. So this might be something that's not currently possible to write a reasonable test over. Well, that is the combination, though. Invalid text allowed, and then entering something that causes the formatter to loop. So we need to break that loop. Okay, so there is not a great way of handling that. Okay, so at least not in our current test. So we're gonna comment this out for now, and we're gonna go back to actually fixing this. And I'm going to take a mental note that XAML test might have to become next week's stream to clean up some of these outstanding issues, because I wouldn't mind an updated release of that, especially to be able to catch some of these cases. So regardless, the failure case is right here. So if you set invalid text allowed to true, right? And so let's see if I can word this differently. If you set invalid text to true, and it parses, right? It can end up looping. So I guess that's what we need to do, is identify what gets us into that exact situation, right? So I want to catch, so let's start with this. Give me my breakpoints window. Breakpoints window. So we're going to just turn all breakpoints off, and then we're going to go and drop some of these in here. So parse time is going to go here. Set selected time I think I want as well. Let's see here. And I think I want this guy here, because this is ultimately a loop with all of these events. So I want to figure, and I want to look here at the text property that we've defined. This guy's got to have a property changed callback. Of course he does. Let's take a look here. Is manually mutating text. So what is this guy? 24 hours. So this is probably what is breaking us. I imagine that's the fix. Is we use this to prevent the loop. So let's find all references. That one's wrapped in it. That one's wrapped in it. That's the wrapper property. This one's not wrapped in it. I bet you this is the fix. Bet you that's the kicker. Let's give it a shot. Though this is one of those changes that I'd feel a lot better if I had the XAML test stuff working to make sure that I didn't break anything else. So let's see, 0, breakpoints window, disable all. Continue, 0, 0, colon, 0. and we're working. So basically adding that leading 0 in a culture that's going to trim it off ends up causing it to get dropped. Okay, but ultimately it now works. So let's come in here. We're going to do some branches. Create branch. Fix. Let's see. 2309. And we are only going to take some of these changes. I do not want that change. Discard. Discard. That change I do want. That change I do not want. That change I want. That change I want. Same with that. Same with that. This is the fix. Those are all formatting. Okay, so I do want that file. Fixing Stack Overflow when the text was being set. So we will push that guy up and come back over here and I guess actually loop back out to here. Compare and pull request. See fixes pound 2309. Boom, create pull request. This is going in the milestone, and we'll let that guy, we'll let the CI system chug on that for a minute while we go and powwow on some other stuff. Okay, so let's look at what else we've got in here. Let's do this one. Right, so this was a request that came up on the chat room, right? So specifically, is this gonna loop me through it? Yeah, so the intent here is to get more control over the helper text, right? So we've got the helper text that's part of the main template, but the problem being that it doesn't expose quite enough control. So let's come back here. I'm gonna take this and I'm just gonna stash it. And then I'd like to come back to master and then let's create a branch fix and give me the number. 2300 even. 2300 even. Okay. Let's come back here. Close, 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 close. So let's take a look at what the problem is here that we're trying to solve. Right, so if we take a look at the WPF themes TextBox, right? So we've got this style here, which is ultimately what we're going to base this on. So this is the character counter. So if you turn the character counter stuff on, down in the bottom, this guy kicks on and starts firing. And what's really being asked here is the helper text, right? So this text block here, there are some convenience properties on the hint assist, right? It's designed to be useful. The problem being is that it's not overly clear, right? One, we already have some naming issues of how this sits, right? But more importantly, if you want to toggle anything else about this guy, you have no access to it. So my thought is, what we're going to do is we are going to just create a style up here. So what we're going to do is we're going to do something very akin to this. So we're going to go with style x key something. We'll come back to what it needs to be in a minute. Target type text block based on static resource text type text block, right? We want it to inherit the base style. Okay, so now we're going to come down here and let's go find that guy again, right? So the only things that this guy really needs set on him are these three right here. These are the defaults that we'd like to have applied, right? So we're going to just kind of dump these guys in real quick. Actually, I'm going to pull these out and go put that there. setter property font size, and then the default value of this guy. So you can't do a template binding here because we're now outside of the actual control template. But what we can do is binding and use a relative source, right? So the relative source has a mode called templated parent, right? And so this is a compile time evaluated binding. This is a runtime evaluated binding, but in general, they will get you the same result, right? Usually, if you can get away with template binding, that's the one you want, right? Okay, so this gives us here, but we also need to do path, and then, let's see, WPF colon hint assist, helper text font size, right? So there's that. Let's see, boom. And then we want to set opacity. And then same type of thing here. Hint assist, hint opacity, right? So right now I am not worried about the naming issue here. That is a problem that should be addressed. But we will deal with that another time, right? So there's text, right? So that gets me there, right? And so now let's think about what this thing needs to be called. So material design, right? So we're going to start there. I kind of want to go out to the material design spec and see what they call it. So let's go here because I don't know exactly. Some of these controls were written back to an older version of the spec, and I'm curious what they call this thing, this label, this. So helper text is underneath, right? Let's just confirm where the heck this guy is. This is not the footer grid. So this is the helper text. So helper text makes the most sense. So helper text block style. Excuse me. I'm just wondering if I need to link it to this style at all, or if it should legitimately be helper text. Thank you, Metal Slug. I'm a little slow tonight on the mute button. I don't know what I'm trying to decide. The problem is once I pick a name for this style, we're kind of stuck, right? It sticks around for a while. So I think that's probably fine. It doesn't conflict with anything. It's descriptive of what it's used for. Yeah, let's go with it. No, take me to the usage again. There. This one. Okay, so now rather than all of this jazz, we're going to go with style gets, and then this guy needs to actually be a template binding. So similar. So what we did on the other one in order to make this work, right? So let's go find this character counter, right? So it has a style, but the style is actually being set from an attached property, right? So it's doing that same bit. But if we look up here, right? Come on, navigate, right? The default for that is just setting somewhere else. So I think this guy, just given that all of this stuff is on hint assist, I think it should probably be hint assist helper text style. I think that's what it should be. setter property WPF hint assist helper text style, right? Something like that. Value static resource. Let's see, material design helper text, right? That goes like that. That goes like that. Then down below, what we do is right. So this guy here, rather than setting all of these properties like this, we go with style binding. This guy is going to need a path with parens because it's an attached property. WPF hint assist helper text style, which we're going to have to go create in a minute. Relative source, templated parent, right? I guess we can drop mode equals, that's the default. Okay, so now what we really need to do is create that property. So I think we go here. Looks like somebody wrote up a nice little thingy-my-bobber for me to copy, so perfect. Okay, so we're going to change this. Helper text style, and then we just got to get all of these right and make sure I don't miss any. Style, helper text, style, type of style, owner type is hint assist, default helper text style. I don't know if I actually need a default set here. This one here is just set up as a convenience bit, but in our case there isn't. This is just really going to be null, right? And we don't need this thing to inherit either. So in fact, we can get away with framework and just go with property metadata. Okay, get helper text style, helper text style. Oh, and this needs to be style there, and this really should be nullable because there's no guarantee that it won't be. Set helper text style there. This becomes nullable style. Helper text style property. Okay, did I miss anything in here? Attached there, that works. That works. That works all the way down. Okay, so that exists. That exists. Once we compile it, the designer should then be happy, and then we'll test it. Right? And let's go and look. What was in the original request? What was it? So this is wanting to turn off or turn on and off validation. So let's just validate that we can change the color to red dynamically. That's really the underlying request that's being asked there. So we're going to redo that. Okay, why are you still unhappy? Helper text style. I just want to launch this real quick and make sure that I'm not crazy before. Cannot find style property. Oh, that says help text. It's because I didn't type it right. So that is legitimate. Did I do it again up here? Did. Okay, so let's try that one more time. Today has not been a good day for my typing. Okay, so that's better. Up to snuff there. Cool. Cool. Okay, so what we really want to do is see if we can toggle the helper text to red, right? That's what we'd like. So let's do a test. Let's see, TextBox test. Perfect. So boom, collapse all those. We will go here. So new fact, public async task. Let's see, helper text can set font color with attached style. Right? That's what we're looking for. And just for my own sanity, we will do issue number, I believe it was 2300. Okay, and we can probably steal a little bit of what's in here already. So we'll just leech a little bit of that, and then we got to change some stuff. So we don't want any of this stuff. What we really want to do is material design, hint assist. Let's see, helper text. Right, so we want to put some helper text in to begin with. And then what we would like to do is, right, just want to confirm that that is helper text. Yep. I think what we're going to do here is we're going to expand out this through text box. Okay, and then we will do material design, hint assist, helper text style. Copy paste, close that guy. 4 5 6 7 8 1 2 3 4. Style target type gets text block based on let's see, static resource, material design, helper text block. Let's see, do you feel like you have to sometimes be hacky in order to implement material design? Yes, a little bit to some degree. There are times where it definitely feels a little hacky. Though I will say the points that feel hacky are rarely driven by the material design spec. Quite often it's one of those, in order to implement something, usually the hardest constraints are around like WPF limitations, of how do I make a built-in WPF control, like data grid's a good example, right? Something where there's not, the material design spec is written for this generic grid type thing, right? There's not a data grid spec. And so you then run into the conflicting problem of the WPF data grid behaves one way, the material design spec says it should behave another way, right? And how do you merge those things together? And oftentimes you end up kind of having to do some really hacky bits. Like I'm thinking of the column indicator when you click on it to sort up and down, where it has a little arrow that toggles. There's not a there's a lot of kind of weird stuff where you have to kind of keep track of some state about your grid in order to do that correctly. But with this library, there's not really a place to maintain state, so you end up kind of storing things in attached properties, and it can get weird at times. So I think in general, not usually, but but yeah, there are some cases like that where it does feel a little hacky. And I try not to do too much hacky stuff because that is almost assuredly a recipe for disaster. Um, but and that's part of why I started writing this XAML test library, and I've tried to get myself in the habit of writing tests because for a long time there was no way to reasonably write a test over this attached style property, right? Like there's no good testing libraries for doing this, which is why I built this thing, because I wanted a way to just effectively automate me launching the demo app and clicking through all the styles, because that was getting out of hand. And more importantly, I miss stuff all the time. And so having something that can be a little more concrete is much better. Let's see, foreground, value, red, right? So this should give us, I think, what I want, right? And so ultimately what I want to grab then is yes. There's a wonderful book, The Pragmatic Programmer. And that's one of the principles they talk about in it is automate everything. And there's always the question of, well, will automation save me time in the long run or not? And sometimes I think people get hung up on the idea that automation always has to save time. Sometimes it can save you headache, and that is worth it too. Here, slight detour. I have some automation that I've built, right? Ironically, for this live stream, right? So there's some GitHub actions that are out running in this repository. So specifically, what will happen is after this stream finishes airing, sometime around like 3 a.m. my time, this GitHub action is going to kick off. It is going to download my Twitch stream. It is going to use FFmpeg to strip off the leading silence, because I usually have that countdown timer in the beginning. It's going to upload it to YouTube, automatically set most of my metadata for me, leave it as private so that I can review it and update the description as needed. And then I'll usually schedule it to go public. And then this other action, what it will do is once that video makes it up onto YouTube, it will download the automated subtitle track for that YouTube video, convert it to Markdown, and then check it in right here. So I kind of like that. It makes me happy, because then when I want to go hunting for when did I say something, I can find it. And I will say, I don't so you can see kind of updating subtitle files, right? Like you can see the GitHub action kicking stuff back in. And I don't think it is necessary. The amount of hours I put into doing this automation, I do not think it has saved me, but it has saved me so much headache. I love it. But yeah, I think I probably have something like 16, 20 hours into it, and it's probably saved me like 2. But my sanity has improved. So yeah, definitely worth it from that regard. So, okay. Step down from the soapbox and back to the test. Okay. I wanted to validate helper. So, because I very much do enjoy automating things, especially when people say, "Oh, we can't automate that." Watch me. Let's see. We will call this helper text, and then we want to do. Let's see. Assert equals, right? And we want. Let's see. This is going to be helper text get foreground color. Yes. And this should be colors dot red. Right? So it should do something akin to that. Run test. And of course the test fails. Excellent. I was worried it was going to be easy. Let's see. XAML parse exception, so I have typoed something. Static resource through an exception, blah, blah, blah. Cannot find resource, material design, helper text block. So, step 1, did I typo the name? Because that would be the most likely explanation. Oh, I bet you the other one is I probably need to include the resource dictionary. Because that one would not get included by default. But I also did typo it. Material design helper text. What did I have it before that I thought it should be? Should it be helper text block? Should probably be text block. That's probably a better name for it. It also lines up with what we did here. It's probably cleaner. Okay. Let's rerun the test. Ba-bum. Let's see what that ends up doing for me. And should probably bring this on so it's visible. Run the test. Launch. Boom. Go! It works. Works. That's what we like to see. That's what we like to see. Boom. Okay. I am happy with that. And this is why I like these tests, because I am now 100% confident that this attached property works. Oh, jam. I love it. Love it. Okay, so let's go here, here. Let's see. So we wrote a test. We want to include that. Hint assist. That works. We want to include that. We added the style here. That's great. It is defaulted there. And that works there. I guess real quick, just to make sure I didn't break anything else, let's just launch the demo. Just to look at the other basic properties. Oh, that's not the one I wanted. I want fields. Right? So basic helper text down there works. Helper text there works. Okay. I think these are the two key ones to look at. This is not helper text. This is the validation, which comes from a different part of the template. So, but at least those two settings appear to be just fine. Okay, so we will add that in. Let's see. Adding style to control helper text. Fixes, pound 2300, commit change, push. And if we go back to, that's not what I wanted. I wanted my GitHub stuff. So this guy here should now have a pull request. Great. Boom, boom, boom. Put it in the milestone. Great pull request. And then one of these guys, let's close those out. There should be a pull request. This guy here passes CI, squash merge, which it should, let's see, clear my branch. That should have closed this, which it did. Huzzah, we'll let this guy run, and that should close that out. Look at that, milestone getting smaller as we speak. Okay, let's do one more at least. Oh man, we're only an hour in. And I've already cleared half the items. Yes. Shoot, we just make a release. Okay, and I did check these when this item got entered, but for a very long time, material design has just had a single validation color, and it was pointed out that that doesn't actually line up with the specs. Who would have thunk, right? And we can double check the information here, and actually this dark theme one, if you look here, it actually calls out, here is the light theme air color, and this is the dark theme air color, and in addition, how they derived it, right? So they merged these two colors, and that's how we ended up with CF6679. right? Which is kind of fun. The way that they merge this is the same way the auto color correction in material design works. Except for they just went until they found the right answer. I wrote code to try and do it. So, which is fun. Oh, in case anybody's missing that, fun feature. One of my favorites that I've implemented that I don't know if people realize exists. There's this color adjust that you can set on the themes. So if you're using the new bundled theme or custom color theme, right, there's a color adjustment you can set. And if you set this color adjustment, you will note that this purple is pretty light, right? If we turn this guy off and we get rid of this, right, and we launch, right, this is much darker, right? And so what is happening here is this purple is following the material design theme colors, right? The problem is the theme colors are written with the expectation that the contrast ratio works for a light theme, right? And so the moment you turn on dark theme, you start getting these things like where these links up here get a little bit harder to see, and it doesn't quite look right, right? So there's a question of what's more important, right? Do you want nice accessibility or do you want very fixed colors, right? So it's up to you, depending on what you're building. If you want to be in control of making sure that it looks good on both light and dark theme, go for it. Have at it, right? Set the colors however you want. But if you've got an app where you've got pretty dynamic colors, you let the users pick them, but you want to make sure that there's good accessibility there, you can turn on the automatic color adjustment and it will shift your colors up and down the hue spectrum, going lighter and darker, right, until they have an appropriate contrast ratio to make them visible, right? So this is dark. If we go to light, you'll note here's that same purple, right? And it looks a lot better, right, when it's on the light background rather than the dark one, right? But as soon as we go dark, it automatically skews it and adjusts it down so that it lines up and looks a lot better, right? So one of my favorite features, again, it's opt-in. You have to turn it on, but it's one line to turn it on. So I think it's cool. For what little it's worth. Okay, now, but on that note, we have validation color problems. So let's go back here, create a new branch off of master, create branch. Let's see here. Create branch. So fix, and then what was my issue number? 2294. 2294. Boom. Okay, so off to the races. So we want to change the default validation color. So I think if I just do search for validation, right, that'll get me pretty close because I'm trying to think of all of the places. I don't care about demo. I care very much about theme. Because this is where things are going to start to matter, right? So we've got these ones here, and I don't know, because we got to deal with the MAAP stuff at some point, and I probably should rev the integration library to make it line up nicely. Let's not worry about the MAAP stuff at the moment. Mental note, come back to it. Don't care about that. This I care about, right? So material design, validation, air color. This is what's getting set, and I need to change it. And here it is. Okay, so here's dark theme, right? So let's go back. We need the dark theme value. Let's see. Dark theme is going to be this guy. So come across here. Boom. That's fine. Find results, light theme, same dealio. Grab that guy, come across, paste, great. Okay, so let's keep looking here. What else we got? Both of those don't matter. So this sets up the brush, but it uses that same validation air property, so that should be fine. sets the color, sets the color. That should work just fine. That should work just fine. That should work just fine. Okay, air template, air brush. Those are all themed out. Great. I don't think any of those should have. Oy vey. So here we got the dark one here that needs to be changed. So come back here, grab that guy, put that guy in there. Let's see, I'm gonna just pin this guy to the bottom for the moment. So that guy is good, brush is fine. Kind of surprised. Oh, data grid D, so it's gonna be in the middle between it and light theme. That's fine, collapse that. Defaults, that's fine, collapse that. There's the light one. Right, so we're going to grab this. The only reason we have to do this in two places is because I haven't wanted to break backwards compatibility for how people want to address or how people want to include their color resource dictionaries. There's 3 ways currently to add the color stuff in. So I'm just not, I figured at some point we may break it, but for now I don't want to be too prescriptive and let people, they can pick whatever makes them happy. Okay, so that's fine. Validation air template, that should be fine. That's all fine there. Great, great, great. Validation assist, that should be fine. Not fixed any colors. Okay, so that should be fine. Okay, so easiest thing to do is let's pop this open and go and check it in probably that text box. That's the one that has a default validation error right out the gate. Test that and make sure it looks good in both light and dark. So definitely a little more subdued in the dark. That's fine. If we go light mode, all right, a little bit darker there. Okay, I mean, the brush has been applied. I think it's probably as simple as that. Let's take a quick peek over at the Ma app side because I'm not entirely clear. Let's see. It's here. Yeah, because for here we have multiple validation brushes. And I don't know what the appropriate one is here. I think if you're using the Ma apps one, we're going to leave it as how those are set. Yeah, I think I'm going to leave those for now. Because I think that will be part of a bigger Ma apps integration change. Okay, so I think that's easy. Let's check it. So dark theme, light theme. So 2 XAMLs, 2 there. Updating validation air colors. Fixes pound. What is it? 2294. Commit. Push. Push. And we come back out to here. This one has completed. Squash merge. Squash merge. Delete branch. This is closed. Great. Great. We will come out here and do another. See, I don't need either of you anymore. Compare and pull request. That goes there. Put you in the milestone. Pull request. We'll let you go on your merry way. Boom. Okay, so that's done. That's done. Let's look at what this one is, since this is the last issue that I was wanting. So Empty project has this problem too. So we want to go and check this guy out. So let's pull latest on master there, switch over to that branch. Let's see, create branch here, and let's just fix this one. Thank you. Circa, perhaps? I appreciate the Prime sub. Welcome aboard. We are having fun with the material design and XAML library. Just trying to get a bunch of issues closed out and hopefully a release ready to go soon-ish. I make no commitments until I actually click the button. Okay, so this seems simple enough, right? Mouse cursor, and ideally highlight the text. So I was grabbing the issue number. That's what it was. Boom. As you can tell, I do not have creative ways of naming stuff. Okay, step one with every bug is always go and attempt to reproduce the problem, right? Step two should probably be write a test, but some things just don't warrant as much tests. Okay, so in the screenshot here, right, so this was picking on the one to the right of OS under combo boxes that has the fruit, right? Under combo boxes, OS has the fruit. So that is a bit of a problem. Yeah, so it is not, not exposing the text block underneath. Okay, so let's start with some little investigation, right? So we're going to open up Snoop, right? And let's take a little look-see at what is going on here. So the combo boxes have honestly been a major point of frustration. And I may have broken this. I have a hunch I know which of my fixes broke this. And part of the issue is, it's not obvious here. Let me flip to light mode. It's a little more obvious here, right? Get that off of, move that. So when you expand the pop-up, right, on an editable combo box, right, there is actually a hole. So we render a pop-up control and we draw a hole all the way through it, right, and try to position it on top of this guy. And there are all kinds of bugs that have cropped up where people will report, hey, I see a line here or I see something here, because it's able to see all the way through, right? So obnoxious. And the only reason is because this text box that's here, right, is expected to be typable, right? Like you can type into it, right? But you'll note I'm supposed to be able to type into it both with the pop-up open and with the pop-up close. So it either needs to be two text boxes that are bound and everything kept in sync, right? Or a pop-up that just lets you click all the way through to the text box, right? And so I'm fairly confident what's happening here is that we are not getting all the way through to the text box, right? So that looks... So that's a toggle button. Where is the... There's the combo box. I'm wanting to know where in this template is the text box. Inner grid. Editable text boxes. So there is the text box, right? And one thing that Snoop very helpfully just showed us, right, is while we're in here. So magical thing with Snoop, when you have it running and you've attached to a process, right, with the crosshairs next to the binoculars, if you go Control Shift with your keyboard, it'll attempt to select whatever controls directly under your cursor, which can be rather helpful to figure out how the hit testing in WPF is working, right? Because to know what is under the cursor is also the thing that's going to get hit when you click on it, right? And so part of what I see happening here is we expected this to get all the way down to this text box, but on top of this is actually this toggle button instead, right? And so I think what's happening is this toggle button is sitting on top here and not allowing us all the way through. Because I'm willing to bet if I look at the cursor here, right? Cursor default. So it's kind of hard to tell, but I'm fairly confident that if we weren't, let's see, let's click off of here. If I do this, right, and I land here, let's make that not hit test visible. Yeah, you'll note as soon as I turn off the hit testing, right, I can now get myself into the correct state where I get the I bar and whatnot. So this guy here, so here, next fun trick. If we change the background, so one of my favorite tricks here with Snoop. So with Snoop, you can just happily go around and change stuff. Background red didn't show up. Something has got a hard-coded color. Okay, so what I was trying to do is figure out where, and it looks like it's roughly about where that grid is what gives me the I bar. So this toggle button is great. The problem is once I make it not hit testable, I guess that is the question, right? When should we want to be able to have, this is weird. Should I be able to click here in the red and have the pop-up open? Right? Because here I can click and just get it open, and that's great for touch interaction. But should the pop-up open here? I am torn. Let's take a look here and see. Sheet setters, where is the, what do they call it? Is it like drop down? Image list, menus, sheets, sliders, snack bar, switches, tabs. Am I blind? Let's start with a couple obvious options. Contained. No, that isn't it. Data tables, date pickers, lists or menus. Yeah, that isn't quite what I'm looking for. Menus is probably not quite. Drop-down menu. Yeah, so you asked the question earlier, Metal Slug, about does it ever feel hacky? And this is one of those cases where it's probably starting to feel a bit hacky. Because how should the combo box behave? How should an editable combo box behave? If you click on the text box, should the drop down open? Yeah. And there's not, and this is the other thing, is there, let's try text fields. Input types. Filled, because it doesn't really give me, a good feeling of how this should work. Oh, our time picker needs to be updated too. I forgot. They changed the UI of how this looks. Ours is still the old one. Yeah, it doesn't appear that there is a great equivalent. Okay, so that's not helpful. I'm wondering if it makes sense. Well, let's experiment. Let's experiment with this. And actually, let's see if I can find where this all went wrong. Let's see. So I want to look at the history of material design combo box. That one. Because I don't know exactly when this broke. Wait, it could have broken here. Where there is a... Oh man, we could jump back. I did not realize there were so many changes. Well, but this is 2020 and... Well, but... See, the bug report said 3.6, I think, was when they noticed the change occur. 3.2. So this is... Let me look. I'm just curious how old this is. Great. Squash merge, squash merge. Boom. Let's look at the releases. How old is 3.2? It's a little old. Let's see. 3.2 here. September of 2020. So it was working September of 2020. Which would mean this... Man. So lots of potential problems. Okay, so that's not an overly useful thing. Right? Okay, so let's see here. I think the most logical solution is to get it back where this toggle button sits behind the editable text box rather than on top of it, because I think that is likely the part of the problem, or at least highly contributing. Right, so there, let's get ourselves into where this guy is. So as you can see, this is not a trivial template. Okay, so this guy here. And I want to go to that one. Collapse, expand. Okay, so let's take a look. So from... There's the pop-up. There's the toggle button, right? So this toggle button... From our little Snoop investigation, right? This guy is what we made hit test visible. Oop, not what I'm looking for. Let's see. One of you, I turned off hit testing. All right, so boom, turn that on. Now that works again, right? But I've lost my cursor and everywhere I click. And part of the issue is this guy is covering the whole thing. And I think letting him cover the whole thing is fine, but I think I want to change it such that this text box sits on top of it. So the inner root needs to sit outside of this toggle button. So the toggle button sits there. And this adorner is what contains the rest of the stuff. So collapse you. And this text box sits here. Okay, let's go through, and I think given that I now understand where this problem is, I think I want to write some tests. Just to try and cover some of these cases. So combo box already has tests written against it. What a shock. given how problematic it is. Okay, so we are going to go here. Boom, and this is going to become issue 2277. 2277. Let's see. On mouse over editable combo box, it shows I-bar cursor. All right, that should be somewhat simple. Kind of want to just pop the demo real quick and take a combo boxes. Right, so this guy here. So there is nothing. The only key property on here is this is editable. So I just want to do this, right? Set that up. We don't really care about items, so we're just going to let that guy go. This grabs the combo box. And then inside of the combo box, I think what I want to do is grab this. So grab that guy by name. Let's see. Editable text box. And then editable text box. Do I not have a move mouse event too? I should have a move cursor to element. That's what I want. Boom. Move cursor to element, and that will by default put it in the center of the element. Perfect. That is what we want. Let's see. That's the cursor property. I wonder, is there not an easy way to query my mouse cursor? Actually, I think here's a better test. We will click the thing, and then we will assert that keyboard focus is within that text box, right? Because that's boy, some of it's getting through. It's just that button is hijacking so much of it. So the problem is I can't. Wow. Man, I'm just trying to look at, so events, right? If I click. Yeah, so you'll note the mouse left button down was handled by the toggle button. So it's what's hijacking it. So how can I write a reasonable test? Because keyboard focus is moving. I don't know if there's... I don't know if there is a... That's WinForms. That doesn't count. That's p invoke. Yuck. Yeah, I don't really want to p invoke. And I guess there's still the outstanding question of should the click trigger the pop-up being open? Right? When I click here to start typing, I think that makes sense. Right? That's fine the way that works. What's not being fine is the fact that it is always toggling when I click here. So I think what the ultimate fix is probably going to need to be boy, how do you do that though? What I really want to have happen is I like the opening behavior. I don't like the closing. And I'm not entirely sure how to handle that. Do that. Boy, the fact that this toggle button sits on top is really kind of problematic. Right? So let's look at what this guy, how this guy's set up. So this guy's background. See, let's dive in here again. Sorry, I'm just still not 100% confident I like my own fix. Let's see. So the combo box is here. If we change the background on the combo box, right, to be blue, right, that ends up propagating where? How is keyboard focus getting moved into that text box is the part that I'm missing. So when I click, see, keyboard focus is inside the editable text box. How did keyboard focus move there when I clicked? Something has got to be manually moving that because keyboard focus should have followed the mouse. Let's hunt usages of this real quick. So that's a condition. That doesn't count. Opacity doesn't count. And I don't think the cursor I-beam is really going to do anything because that should be the default for the text box. That's just reading. That is setting it visible. Boy, what is doing that? Something is moving the focus there. Find all references to that guy. Where else would that be? We can ignore that for the moment because that's mine. Ah. This guy is doing magic. Those are the ones we just looked at. That doesn't count. But you... If TextBox is a combo box, find that guy out of the template. If you find him, editable text box, So I'm going to add some braces here while I'm doing this, because these if statements are not clear to me how they're set up. And this one, we're going to go here. There's a small performance improvement in C# if you go to an is null rather than an equals equals null. Is incredibly minor, but the equals equals operator can be overridden. So whereas is null is guaranteed to always be reference equality against null. It's the equivalent of a reference equals null check. So it is mildly better. Not likely to cause any bugs unless somebody has overridden equals and done a really poor job. Oh, I guess that doesn't work. Okay. Just looking to see, because I know we've got some attached stuff in these things that does weird functionality. So who and how would this focus be moved? Let's go back here. Because this hint, this wouldn't be doing it, would it? Focus changed, right? This isn't likely to be the problem, I don't think. Because this is all around just the hint stuff. It's not expected to move anything around. But I'm still a little baffled as to what is moving focus. Because the only named elements, let's see here. Because that wouldn't do it, that wouldn't do it. It's right there. And in the template, it only gets set up so if editable is true, it sets the visibility on it and hides the visibility of the content presenter, which makes sense, right? That's what we expect. Because if editable, this guy becomes the content, not this guy. Okay, I get it. But what I am not getting is how the heck you're getting focus. For example, I click off and keyboard focus is still there, right? But I click again and it's, right? You can see the underline effect. So close pop-up, move keyboard focus. It's there's not a how. Okay, so when I click, that closes the pop-up because the pop-up implicitly has focus and light dismiss. So maybe I'm looking at this from the wrong perspective, and it really needs to be looked at from the perspective of this guy, because this is a custom implementation. So I'm curious about, there's no editable checks in here. There's no text box references in here. Because the whole point of this pop-up control is to just handle that kind of hole cutting mechanism that I was describing earlier inside of the combo box. Oh, but isn't there a... I think there's something with the custom placement callback. Okay, let's look through this here. So this is remarkably simple, but how does it know when to render this with a hole and when not to? So is dropdown open is an interesting one to check on. Fill background. Where is the content set? I guess it's going to be based upon the mode of which one of the templates it selects. So down content template, right? I want to look at where that gets used because that's the current one that we're landing on. Set child template if needed. All right, so the content controls template gets set in code if it doesn't match. Okay. That's fine. So let's look at the down template. Let's see if we go here. Is there anything fancy that would happen in here? So all of this border and grid stuff is literally to just cut that hole around the text box, which is why I'm hunting in here to see if that is allowing anything through. It doesn't appear to be doing any. Boy, I am a little befuddled on how to best address this. Okay, so backing up and rehashing this one more time. All right, so we've got several controls inside of the template, but the key path in question is around this toggle button. So in terms of Z order, it sits near the top, right? This button here is the only one on top of it, and this is just for the clear button, right? So it basically extends across the entire control. It occupies the entire space. Somehow, when we click on it, it's allowing it to get all the way through to the editable text box because keyboard focus moves all the way into here. And it could just be that this is the only thing that can accept keyboard input. So it's moving in there by default when the control gets focus, which I could understand that. The problem being is that because this thing isn't on top of the stack, we run into problems. What happens if we move this? So this is the helper, right? That's fine. The pop-up doesn't really matter where in the Z order it goes. I mean, it matters a little bit, but not that much. I'm just wondering if I can take this button. Let's test this. So theory, if I take this button and put it here in the grid, right? Leave that guy there. How much does that break by having the button that far back in the Z order? Because I think it'll fix the problem. I just also think it's going to have unintended consequences. And I'm wondering if the open state of the pop-up... Oh. Could not copy while the other one's running. And I'm wondering if the open state of the pop-up should be bound is drop-down open. I'm wondering if this should be somewhat controlled by if keyboard focus moves inside of that. Condition, 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 condition. Yeah, so it's not being set anywhere. Okay, so all right, so that moves it up. The problem being that now nothing's getting all the way through to the back. So that's not quite what we wanted. Let's see here. Let's take another run at this. So what if this guy were moved inside? The issue being some of this padding stuff would need to be adjusted. Let's look here. So I'm wondering if leaving it where it is, I want to know what's handling this click. So events. So the text box is getting it. So, but what if this text box were not the full width, right? So who handles it there? Let's clear that real quick. So if I click outside of the text box and on the button, mouse down on template root border handled by combo box. So template root border. So it's never allowing it to get to the button. I'm not entirely sure what if this adorner decorator is actually needed. I think it's just there to have an adorner layer for the smart hint. I think. But if that's the case, it can be moved lower into the stack. Or I guess technically it should probably be moved up higher at the, perhaps wrapping the grid level, because we don't need it down that low. Okay, so I'm still interested in why when I click, so there's the text box, right? If I click here, mouse down on template root border, so properties, background there is being set to transparent. I think that is a problem because transparent allows it to be hit testable. If we turn that off, because the visually transparent and unset look the same, but they are functionally different. Transparent will let your object still be clicked on, whereas unset will not, right? And usually we get bit going the other direction where we haven't set it and we can't click on the item. Let's see here, combo boxes. Okay, so that for better or worse, that gets me to there. Okay, which is better. I'm wondering though, I'd like all of this empty space to not be I-bar and only have that be related to there. So I think to do that, let's find that text box. That's being controlled by this grid. Okay, so what do we got here? Inner root. What I'm looking to do is have this thing be moved all the way left. So this is the prefix, which should go there. Smart hint, which makes sense. And then this is the suffix, which also makes sense. I think what we do is we do this. And then all we do is we leave this column empty, right? And we kick this guy over one. Let's give that a shot. Because that means if my cursor goes I-bar, I'm in text selection mode, and that will be as small as whatever my text is, allowing me to click or tap anywhere else to get the combo box open. The other one, right, so that lets me click there. So if I go Apple, right, all over here gets me open. But this allows me to select the text that I care about. But if I tap anywhere close to outside of that, that gets me set up. only thing is this hint here is actually extending the I bar all the way over, and I kind of don't like that. So I think we come down here and change that by going grid column span 2. So the hint can expand all the way across, but it won't increase the size of the first column, allowing this guy to stay nice and small. I think this is probably the safest of the compromises. Right, so no I bar, no I bar, I click. Right, I go Apple. Right, I can now still select the I bar and get the text that I want, but anywhere outside, it moves around, goes back to there, but I still get the I bar and can interact with the text here. I think that makes the most sense. Now, we dropped an adorner layer, and the question is, who would need the adorner? You certainly would. I'm thinking, though, that the adorner should move. Well, so there's a question, though. If I put it... Oh, no, that would be fine. This is all inside the pop-up. Right? That is fine. So let's unindent that for the moment. But I think what we do is we do it here. Adorner decorator. We'll put the adorner layer here rather than nested. Right, so bring that up. Slap that in. Indent. There's probably some formatting options that need to be cleaned up here. Most of you should be good. Everything at the root level is going to be off by 1. Yeah, so let's give that a shot just to make sure it works. I think this is probably a reasonable compromise. Because I think the adorner is probably being down at that level is probably a bug waiting to happen. Okay, so if we clear that out, tab over, right? I almost feel like I want to set a minimum width on this. Right, to give me some amount of, right, so when I come over here, somewhere around the beginning, I get an I bar. So it's not the entire thing. It's somewhat small initially, but if you're on a mouse, that's going to be a reasonable target. Yeah, that feels reasonable to me. You can see that bar. Okay, so that still works. Okay, so that I think is all still good. Okay, I think we have not broken anything, which is just good. That is what we want. Okay. Actually, I want to go back real quick, because there was one thing I saw right at the end as I closed it. The validation position may have shifted, but I don't know if that is intentional. Validation test. That indent, is that something caused by my min width? Where is the validation being attached here? It is outside of this, so that should not be a problem. Okay, perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay, we're going to call that a reasonable fix, and I will be curious if people play with it, what their thoughts are on it. Let's check here. So let's come back. Was there anything in here that mattered? No, that was largely formatting related. Okay, so in here, white space indentation, lots of white space indentation when I format a document, sure. Fine. So the adorner decorator got pulled up outside the grid rather than inside of it. Right? The toggle button got brought higher in the stack, which is fine. This got, oh, the background drop. We should test background changes. Right? So what happens if we do, right? We want to grab, sure, this will be fine, the OS one. Background red, right? And then I want to do the same thing with the editable one. Pink. Sure, that'll work. I want to see that that still works. I think it will because because we pulled the button up. Oh, but it doesn't. Oh, interesting. So the background is not being appropriately set now. So we can't just delete that assignment. We need to relocate it elsewhere. Okay. What line was that on? About 415, give or take. Okay, so this guy here previously assigned a, I think what we do is we move it up to here. And we go background gets template binding background. I think that's what we do. Because this thing is still surrounding the whole area. Okay, so combo boxes, there we go. Interesting that it doesn't show, and I know why it's not showing it, and I think that's probably good enough. Okay, so if we come back to our diff and check this, we check in here, formatting, formatting, formatting. Down here, we see the background one get deleted, but move up to here, which is fine. We added the extra column definition, which is fine. A minimum width, we made the smart hint span. We shifted the suffix down a column to account for the new one that we added. Indentation changes, and we're at the end. Okay. Let's see. Proposed fix for 2277. Fixes pound 2277. Let's put a little more description in here. There is a contention between allowing the cursor to interact with the editable text box versus controlling the pop-up's state. This is an attempt at a compromise such that the cursor over the direct text interacts with the text box, but clicking elsewhere will interact with the pop-up. Okay, we'll do that, push that, push that. And I think with that, hey, show me the, there you go. Milestone 410. And I think this clears out the list of items that I had put into the milestone, which is good. Given the long list of issues, I probably need to do some backlog grooming and get that all cleaned up. But I am fairly happy with where this is landing. I am still waiting on some GitHub secrets to get added to go back to my GitHub Actions stuff that we had started before. I do plan on moving things over from DevOps into GitHub Actions, which would be great. That way things are a little smoother, a little bit easier for other people to contribute, and everyone can see what's going on, rather than things being hidden off in release pipelines that are not under source control. So hopefully that smooths up a little bit of that process and makes it a little more transparent for everyone. And then off to the races we go. So with that, it is getting late. I should sleep. Thank you everyone for coming and hanging out. Always nice chatting with you, Metal Slug. And Circa, thanks for the sub. I really appreciate it. With that, I'm going to say happy coding. Everyone have a good week. See you next time.